Hello, I'm Todd Hall, President and CEO of TruLiant. As we mark our 70th anniversary in 2022, we reflect on a rich history that would not be possible without the support of the great city of Winston-Salem. From our humble beginnings in 1952 to the present, where we will soon serve over 300,000 members, hire our 1,000th employee, and exceed $4 billion in assets, to a future poised for continued growth, I am proud of the work we are doing together. TruLiant is grateful for and remains committed to Winston-Salem and all of Forsyth County.
Welcome to the Greater Conversations podcast. I'm Deetra Miller, the Director of Member Relations and Engagement at Greater Winston-Salem, Inc. We'll use this platform to showcase our local businesses, our community, and their stories. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. I'm super excited today because there are bagels in the room.
Oh, yeah.
Today we have...
I never complain when there's food people.
Listen, we love food people. We love our food in Winston-Salem. And today we have Marc Singer and Amy Singer Douglas with us, the owners of Bagel Station. There's one other owner that's not here with us today. I'll let them introduce that person. But Marc Singer is the owner and handles operations, and Amy Singer Douglas is also an owner and handles the marketing for Bagel Station. Welcome to you both. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Of course. Yes. You're very welcome. You're very welcome. So for most of our local listeners, they're probably super familiar with the Bagel Station. But for those that are listening that may not be, share what the Bagel Station is.
Well, we're the lucky second owners of Bagel Station. It's a homegrown bagel shop started by previous owners, Dan and Kathy Winters, who obviously were yearning for a New York-style bagel, and started the shop in 1990.
Yep, 1990.
Yeah.
I think it was November.
Okay, November of 1990, yeah. And so we were lucky enough to take ownership on, if you can believe it, April Fool's Day of 2016. Yes, right? We did. It was no joke. But it was a new venture. And Marc, one of our other owners, and also happens to be my brother, has a rich history in bagels. So he had a special relationship with the original owner, and I'll let him tell you about that.
So I was in the bagel business. Previously to the Bagel Station, I had a retail store in Charlotte, North Carolina. And then I also expanded and opened up a wholesale bagel manufacturing facility and owned that for about 17 years. While I was in the bagel business, I made a point of making friends with other bagel owners. And Dan was one of the people that I stayed in contact with, who was an anesthesiologist in his main career path, and bagels was a hobby for him with him and his wife. And
so fill them up, get them where they knock out, or give them anesthesia and knock them out. Either way, they're going to sleep well.
Exactly. I think that may have been his method to his madness, but it seemed to work. He was able to maintain both his practice as well as his bagel business over the 25 years, which he prided himself on greatly. He was very excited about that. But so I got to know Dan over the years, and then I wound up selling my company in 2017, and then everything kind of stopped. No more emails, no more phones, and everything dried up as much more so than I ever realized once you sell your business after doing it for 17 years. And I started to call some of the people that I knew, Dan being one of them, and I said, Dan, if you ever need any help, I said, I've got a lot of time in my hands now. And literally the next day, he called me and said, I'd love for you to come and see what you can do to help my operations. So I spent, the next day I went there, and we agreed to a consulting arrangement, and then I was there for a year and a half and made quite a few improvements to the business. And then I went on to do some other consulting work in Charlotte. And then 4 years later, Dan said, Marc, I want you to help me sell the business. I'm ready to retire.
Wow.
And that's the way this came about. So then I called my friend CP and Amy and told her about the opportunity. And I then went back to Dan and said, I'll tell you what, I'll do one better. We're going to buy the stores from you.
Nice.
And that's the way it came about.
Nice. So that leads me to a question I had, because I was just wondering, you have kept the name Bagel Station, and you've just embraced the history and the community around it. What made you decide to continue with that instead of just going in, rebranding, doing something completely new?
So Bagel Station had a long life of its own before we came along. And we met many people who would tell us stories about how they met their first mom friends there, how they brought their kids there, how they met their Bible groups there, their running groups, and gentlemen who would come every Sunday and have a bagel and coffee because it reminded him of every Sunday going fishing with his dad up in Connecticut. Oh. They would go and get a bagel and coffee on the way to the stream, and he would come every Sunday and do that. So Bagel Station was far larger than we were as humans. It was important that it remained so, that we didn't make any changes. The only thing we ever wanted to do was paint, fix, tidy, maybe add some menu items, but never take anything away. And there was a little pushback in the beginning when we took the paintbrush to the walls and hung some signs that kind of illuminated a little bit more of what was on the menu. It was 2 tiny little chalkboards in the beginning, and there was like 15 or 20 items, and you really didn't get the breadth and scope of what you could really order. So we expanded on that, and there was a little bit of a temporary panic that we may have been corporatizing. That was the word that was used at the time.
A lot of the customers basically were urging us not to change anything.
Right.
So we tried to incorporate that into our ways of as we move forward.
Yeah, so we just consider ourselves stewards. You know, there will be another Bagel Station owner at some point, right? When we all decide to come to the same point that Dad did. But it has a life of its own, and it needed to remain so. So that was our goal.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that. Well, speaking of continuing the legacy, we recently had a ribbon cutting at your location where you've expanded,
Yes.
and there's some amazing things in that expansion. Talk a little bit about that and how it embraces the community.
Sure. Well, we always kind of wanted to expand. The space wasn't there, and then we were able to just sort of break through the wall and add a dining room. We knew we needed a little creative inspiration in order to figure out how to make it continue as a community space. And we reached out to Melissa Ward, the interior designer locally, very talented, who gave us some wonderful ideas. We didn't have sky is the limit budget. We had a pretty tight one, and she was very gracious to work within that for us. And she suggested that we connect with Holly Linville Evans, who is a local artist and specializes in Winston-Salem cityscapes. So I said, fantastic. So Holly was as gracious as can be and allowed us to provide a lot of input into what we wanted to see. And I said, I think it's important for the community to understand that we are here continuously as part of the fabric of the city. There's a lot of organizations we've consistently, long before we took ownership, we continued on supporting the same types of organizations. And so she integrated a lot of the things that we asked her to do. We couldn't include every high school. We knew if we did one and not all of them, so we stuck with the colleges and some of the landmarks and things and the nonprofits. But that was a real special treat. We've gotten some lovely feedback about it and just are so happy to welcome people back in the dining room after 3 years of
Craziness.
Just a little craziness.
Yeah.
They're happy to see it as well. They're embracing it very nicely, and we were there today, and just a lot of people sitting down now and enjoying it.
Yes, nice to see smiling faces in the dining room again. That's what the hospitality industry is. I mean, if you're not with the people you're serving,
exactly.
Yes, it's been so quick in and out for so long. So it's been terrific. And then today, Holly came back and hung more original art because we're going to be taking the other two walls in the space and using it as a place for local artists to display their work. So Holly will kick it
that's
off. It
amazing.
seemed appropriate for her to do that. And then we'll be putting a call out to other community artists to see if they'd like to hang their art as well. So,
Wow, that is awesome. You guys are not originally from Winston-Salem, but you have embraced it in such a wonderful way. What is it that you love about this community?
Well, my heart is still with Winston because I actually started in Winston after graduating college. I got recruited by the Village Tavern.
Oh,
I
really?
started when they had one store, and I worked for Scott Richardson and a few other investors. But they had one store, and their plan was to open up many more Village Taverns. So I started with them in 1989, 88 actually, and then worked for them for 2.5 years. But during those 2.5 years, I worked at the one at Rinalda Village for about 1.5 years, and then they opened one up in Greensboro, and I got transferred and promoted to open up the Greensboro store. And then literally 60 days later, they opened up the Charlotte store, and I got transferred and promoted to open up the Charlotte store. And I really liked Charlotte, and then wound up leaving them after 2.5 years to start my company called Bagel Time.
That's awesome.
So
That's
I was
awesome.
Still passionate about Winston-Salem
I
and
love
where
that.
I came from.
And what about you?
so I worked for Marc in Charlotte for several years, and then before moving out of state. But what I really love about Winston is the artsy foodie scene and the academia. I love the spirit of the city.
Yes.
It seems like it's a very supportive place, that it's welcoming. I had a friend who lived here for a number of years and moved away recently, an artist who decided to kind of plunge back into what she was doing. And the community embraced her with open arms and really re-jump started her art career again at a time when she thought she had something new to offer. So it just has really impressed me. And the city itself is so pretty.
It really is.
Yeah, it's so pretty. So, I mean, I really...
Even today.
Yeah, even on a rainy day.
Even on a rainy day, it's beautiful.
Yeah. So there's just a great vibe here. Yeah.
Well, I have to say, admittedly, I've only been to your location once, but I've had bagels from there because, it's the place to go, really. And so people have brought them away. But I was there about 3 weeks ago, the first time I actually had been in. I have to admit that bagels haven't always been my thing. But I had a sausage, egg, and cheese bagel, and then I had another one with some special cream cheese because that's what you do, right? But I was there with one of my favorite former New Yorkers who swears by your location.
Terrific.
So if a New Yorker can go in there and recommend it,
Yes.
then it must be something special
Yes.
to be a New York style bagel, right?
For sure. And believe me, we have a lot of reviews that start out with, I'm a New Yorker and I know.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I should know.
And that makes me feel good because I feel like since I've been doing it for 20-something years that at least I did something right.
You've got it down pat. You've got it down pat. That's
The only
awesome.
thing we don't have is the water.
That's true.
But you don't need the water. Bagels are still good without the water.
Right.
Without this certain type of water.
Yeah. I mean, do you really want to drink the Hudson River,
No.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, we can't talk about bagels without you guys talking a little bit about the menu. So, talk a little bit about what you offer.
So we're pretty traditional, egg sandwiches. We are a total custom shop. If you're thinking you're going to come to us and you're going to order the number 9, there's no such thing as a number 9 at Bagel Station because the bagel will be different and how it gets toasted will be different and the kind of egg you want. And if you want 2 eggs and different cheeses and different meats, and then we have all our deli selections. We have over 20 flavors of bagels and about 17 flavors of cream cheeses. So I think I did the math once.
17?
Yeah, and
That's amazing.
you could come for 400 and something days straight and just eat bagels, a new bagel and cream cheese combination. That doesn't even include the egg sandwiches and the deli sandwiches.
For those keeping track, that's over a year.
Well over a year.
Yes. Yeah.
And math is hard.
Exactly. So we're really good at counting by 12, though.
Okay, of course you are.
We've
or
mastered
13.
Or
that.
13.
Or
Yeah.
13, exactly.
Make it a baker's dozen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah,
Baker
so I mean, we're such a custom shop, and sometimes that's makes our job a lot harder, right? Because we aren't making the number 9, so you know,
A little harder to crank out.
a little
faster.
harder at the pace that we work. Mistakes can be made. People are been very generous. You know, sometimes not generous.
It's good to be flexible, but sometimes at a
Yeah.
fault.
Yeah.
So I mean, you know, the team works really hard and fast. I mean, knock on wood, you know, we're very lucky right now to say we have a good, hardworking team, and
We do.
and they really enjoy getting to know the customers, and we appreciate that very much.
They recognize a lot of them by, walking in the door, and they already know it might be blueberry with cinnamon raisin cream cheese or
Oh,
some
that's
interesting
lovely.
combination
Yeah.
specific to them, to them, the individual. So
Yeah,
I love that. And one thing that a lot of people may not know is you cater also.
we do.
Talk a little bit about that.
So our sweet spot is, you know, office parties and events and of that nature. Here and there we get called on to do something larger. We did do a little alley-oop recently and catered a wedding, if you can believe it.
Wow, that's awesome.
That was not a breakfast wedding, it was a dinner wedding.
Wow.
Yeah. And I think I lost sleep for a week leading up to it, worrying that we didn't make enough food or, you know, whatever. But we really enjoy that aspect of it. And there are people that come every week for regular office meetings. We do bagel trays, we do pastry trays, we do boxed lunches. And we don't have a minimum or a maximum necessarily. But if you're going to order a lot, we definitely need
Some notice. Yeah.
Just a little bit.
yeah,
Especially for a wedding.
Yeah, yes. We do fruit trays. We do coffee, box coffee to go. So we get a lot of tailgaters who will come in and do trays. You know, it's great for
a lot of sports teams.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, well, we've fed the football teams and the soccer teams, and it's a real joy. But the minimum notice for us is 24 hours if you're just getting a bagel tray, because that's our sweet spot.
But we've produced under shorter notice as well.
Yeah.
Wow.
But other items, you know, fruit trays, and pastries, things like that, we ask for 2 days notice. But
Okay.
yeah, it's a fun and regrowing again, by the way, because
Yes.
since
Really?
now people are gathering together again, we can cater because they
It got
They
quiet,
weren't doing
but
that.
It's come
I
back
mean,
quite a
it-
bit now.
it just
think
went
that's great.
to zero,
Yes,
you know,
so
for a
glad.
while. So
Now, we mentioned a lot the location, but you actually have 2 locations.
correct.
Share with everyone what those 2 locations are,
Yes.
or where those 2 locations
So
are.
the original store that opened in 1990 is on 129 Oakwood Drive. And then we have a second location, I think.
1977 Peace Haven Road.
Yes. And when did that one open? About
1996.
96. Okay, so about 6 years after the original location. And that one, it's in a Harris with a Harris Teeter, and
Okay.
I'm
Shopping
not
center.
plugging anybody else specifically. It's
Whitaker Square,
the
right?
Whitaker
Whitaker
Square
Square.
Shopping Center. But that one was actually previously a Chesapeake Bagel that didn't make it.
Okay.
So Dan was smart enough to kind of nestle into that space because it was already a bagel shop.
Perfect.
So it was easy to move into that. But yeah,
What does the future hold for the Bagel Station?
what do you think, Mark?
You're doing such a nice job. I'm rolling with the expert.
Y'all are so sweet to each other. I love this brother-sister relationship.
You can blame my parents for that.
That's great.
I think we're gonna focus on possibly doing maybe another slight renovation to 129 Oakwood Drive for the ability to process orders faster
Okay.
Because of I think with the expansion, we're getting more people coming in, so we need to figure out ways
That's
to
great.
get more efficient, and possibly even expand maybe some menu items and offer up some new things for the customers. I think also just continue to work on employee retention and how to keep good people, and then keep doing more of the same. I think it's not broken, so just keep doing a lot more of the same.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. Well, is there anything that we didn't touch on today that you want everyone listening to know?
We're grateful.
Very grateful.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
really
For
grateful.
the customers, our employees, and to be in business.
That's awesome.
People were very generous in spirit and action during the pandemic. We were very appreciative for that. We did our level best to keep on keeping on in the last few years, and we managed to, still come out of this intact. We were actually turning 30 in March of 2020, and we had a whole year's worth of interesting marketing plans, and we were going to try and start the expansion then.
Okay.
And then the whole world changed.
Yeah.
Right. So, so we're grateful. We were able to pick it up, like fast forward and pick it up a few years later. But it's exciting to be part of a community that appreciates you.
I love that. I love
Absolutely.
that. Well, for everyone that's listening, again, you have 2 locations, 129 Oakwood and 1977 Peace Haven. Perfect. So please visit, everybody listening. And if you're interested in catering, go to their website, which is?
Yes, you can go to bagelstation.net. We have an Instagram account, Bagel Station WS. And then on Facebook, we're Bagel Station either 2, as in 2 eyes.
Like the second.
Or Bagel Station Oakwood. They have their own personality, so they deserve their own Facebook pages.
There you go. Perfect. And speaking of personality, please do drop by the Oakwood location so you can check out the wonderful art that's in the expansion. So again, Marc and Amy, thank you so much for being
you.
here. And
for
for
having us.
everyone, you're welcome. And for everyone listening, until next time. We know you enjoyed this podcast today, so join us for the next episode of Greater Conversations. By the way, you can follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Be sure to smash that subscribe button. Also, be sure to visit our website at winstonsalem.com. The views and opinions stated in this podcast are solely those of the contributors and not necessarily those of our sponsors, distributors, or hosting companies. This podcast is copyrighted and cannot be reproduced without expressed written consent of Greater Winston-Salem, Inc. or your toast.